God never brought this one moment of clarity where everything got figured out. But he was so consistent in my life. He was there in every storm for me, and he's there in every storm for you, whether you realize it or not.
Hello and welcome to CT Brandon. My name is Charles. I'm one of the pastors here. Thank you so much for joining us online today. In just a few moments, Pastor Nikki, one of the associate pastors here at CT, is going to share a bit of her life story with our new series, Summertime Stories of Hope. Hey, if you are new here, we would love to get to know you. Would you head over to ctbrandon.com and click I'm new? If you give us a bit of info, we can get in touch with you during the week. The link is down below in the description. And if you haven't yet, make sure to hit that like button. Make sure to stick around to the end. We have some exciting things happening here at CT we think you might want to know about. Well, let's turn things over to Pastor Nikki.
Good morning. I'm Pastor Nikki. Maybe you've seen me here before, or, maybe this is your first time meeting me. Hi. We are continuing our Summer of Hope series. And so we are telling stories of how God changed our lives. Some people call them testimonies. And so it's going to be an exciting time. So if you've heard me before, this is going to be a little bit different. You're going to just get to know me a little bit. And I'm excited for that. So I guess a little bit about me. I grew up in Brandon. I have two older siblings, and I grew up actually in the Catholic Church, which is a little bit different than the church that I am in now. And so I was actually baptized as a baby the first time. And when I got baptized, supposedly I was very loud. I was screaming and crying, and my great aunt Jen said, "This girl is going to be the first female pope." Now, Aunt Jen wasn't quite right about all that, but I mean, I am, fully invested in my job of serving God, so I guess kind of like that. But there's this important passage in Jeremiah 1:5, and it says, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations." God had a plan for me before I even realized. God has a plan for each of you, actually, before you've maybe realized yet. And so from me being a baby, God had set me on this plan. So this next step was in grade 8. There's this thing in the Catholic Church, and it's called confirmation. And what it is you are stepping out in your faith and saying, my parents' faith is not my own. I am choosing to follow in whatever path I'm choosing. So I went to all the classes, I did all the things, and I did confirmation. One of my first decisions after confirmation is I talked to my parents and I said, I kind of want to change churches. Imagine the shock on my parents' faces. What? What are you talking about, right? Well, I had been going to this youth group at this church, and I said, well, I'd like to go to that church. So my parents, who were so supportive and so kind to me, said, okay, I guess we'll switch churches. Because again, I went there because I knew it was right. I knew it was what I was supposed to do. I was just following what I was supposed to do. So we went to this new church, and things look different. People talk differently. The songs we sang were different. The traditions we had that were really different. Again, like at the Catholic Church, like I was an altar server wearing the white robe and the cross, and I served in that way. And at this new church, I wore totally different clothes, and it was weird, and I was uncomfortable, but I stepped out because I knew God wanted me to, whatever that really meant to me. And so sometimes, I guess it's an encouragement that sometimes God's call on your life can be to do big things. can be to do weird things. That was such a weird step for me. It actually caused a lot of relational tension in my family. It caused some tension even, again, friends who were at the church weren't really sure why we were leaving. And there was a lot of issues it caused, but I trusted God in those moments. And I continued then into high school, and I still went to church, kind of. I'd go to church on Sundays when I didn't have soccer or basketball or whatever other activity I had going on. And I went to church because it was the right thing to do, right? At least that's what I thought. That's why I was going. And I had this youth pastor, Pastor Ruth, who she will forever be this important person in my life. Because here's the thing about youth pastors. They can be so frustrating. I'm going to use the word frustrating. Because Pastor Ruth knew how to just, she never gave up on me. See, because I wasn't going to youth group all the time. I was always busy. But she'd keep contacting me. We'd go for lunches. She would do all these things to show me that I mattered. And I remember after grade 11, going into grade 12, I get contacted from Pastor Ruth. And she says, hey, we got this missions trip coming up. Now, I had been on the missions trip like 2 years before that. And I was like, okay, yeah, I get it. And there's stuff going on, like with friends. And I was like, 2 weeks, that could be a nice break. But I wasn't sure about all the churchy stuff going on. It was a part of my life, but I didn't want to make it too big of a part. And so I was like, okay, well, sure, I guess I'll go. So I head on this missions trip, and it was a great experience, and I made some really good friends. And then toward the end of the missions trip, I start talking to these friends, and Pastor Ruth is there again, and she says, hey, Nikki, do you want to go to youth camp? And I was like, what is youth camp now? And so I said, I don't know. I got a lot of stuff to do. Like, I might be busy with this. I might be busy with that. I tried to make a lot of excuses, but she wouldn't really take them. So there I was a couple weeks later, heading to youth camp. And at youth camp, I remember this moment. And it seems so silly now, but I'm talking to some of my friends. Me and this girl are joking. And we're like, do you know what we should do? We should become youth pastors, like Pastor Ruth, because this is such an easy job. Like, you get paid to do this? Are you serious? So we're joking and we're laughing. And Pastor Ruth was so kind. She kind of just nodded her head, didn't say a lot. And the rest of the service, the youth camp speaker spoke, and I have no idea what he spoke on. Not a clue. Because all I could think of is being a youth pastor. What is that? I had no idea. Do you go to school? Do you just show up? Like, what does that even mean? So I kept thinking about it, and it just kept kind of going on in my head. And then, a couple months later again, Pastor Ruth contacts me again and says, hey, do you want to go to this youth conference? This lady would not give up. And I was like, I'm busy. I have anything else. And for a girl who every weekend was busy, somehow it wasn't busy. The thing is, sometimes God speaks through people because we don't always want to listen to him. And so God spoke through Pastor Ruth and said, hey, come to this youth conference. And so I went there, and I learned what a Bible college was. I learned that I could actually go to Bible college, and I could play sports. And I thought that was pretty cool. So I kind of had this idea. I'm going to go to Bible college, whatever that is. I'm going to play sports for a year, and then I'll just be done after that. Because if you do 1 year, I feel like you're not really wasting it that much, right? But if you do 2 years, you're really committing to something. So I signed some forms, and I came back and I said, hey, Mom, Dad, so I think I'm going to go to Bible school. And my parents thought I lost my mind, because just like how I didn't know what Bible school was, they had no idea what I was talking about. So I kind of explained, like, yeah, I'm going to go, but I'm going to play, I'm going to send my tapes, and I'll play basketball for a year, and it'll be all good. I had it all mapped out. In Proverbs, it says, many are the plans in a person's heart, but it's the Lord's purpose that prevails. I had it all mapped out how it was going to go. I knew exactly how it would go, right? And so I went to Bible college for the year. And it was difficult. Because, as you've heard in my story, I've always known that there was a God, but I didn't know who he was. And so I got to Bible school, and there were a lot of people that looked like way better Christians than me. I showed up, and they would do their memory verses, and they would talk about these devotions they were doing. And they would pray in, like, just for fun, and just they would go up to people and say, hey, can I pray for you? And they would do weird things in my mind. Like, I remember one of the weirdest was we were all in this meeting, and then the one person said, and we're going to sing the doxology now. Now, if you don't know what the doxology was, I had no idea what this was. So I just kind of looked left and right and thought, I am going to look so silly. And they all start singing this song, which at that point I kind of wondered, did I join a cult? Like, what is going on? I felt so lonely. Like, nobody knew me. Like, nobody could understand me, because all these people were talking in this way. And all these people understood each other in this way. And then you had me. And I didn't understand any of it. And I was at Bible school, 6 hours away. There was one other person at the school I knew before this. And I thought, God, why did you bring me here? Like, I get it. I'm not good enough. That's really what I thought in those moments. I get it. I don't fit in. And even my roommate, she was this girl that, like, opposite of me. Like, she could sing the worship songs, and she would just pray for people, and she was just so kind and so nice, and it didn't make sense why I was there. We were so different. So I remember one night just kind of feeling done. Because even though I said I was only going to do this for a year, I didn't think it was going to be this hard. I didn't think I was going to feel this lonely. even on the basketball team, which I thought I would have so much fun. I was redshirting the first year, which means you don't play, which I was okay with. But then one of the girls got injured, so I actually ended up being on the bench and playing a couple games, and even that I found no joy in. I dreaded every moment of when the coach would say, "Hey, Nikki, you're in the game." I didn't want to play. I found no joy in the things I used to find joy in. But I was learning in my classes to depend on God, even though I questioned why he was doing what he was doing. And so I remember this one night going to this worship night. It was called Surrender, and all my friends said they were busy, so I just thought it's okay, I'll just go on my own, because I was at this point in my life that I thought, God, you got to do something. I have two choices right now. I'm either going to continue with you or I'm done with you. And I knew that the path ahead with God wasn't going to be easy, because so far it hadn't been, but there was still this grasp he had on my life. So I go there and I'm sitting there and I'm just crying. And I'm praying and I'm saying, God, help me. Like, you need to do something if you want me to continue in this, because it just doesn't seem like there's any point. And I feel this hand on my shoulder. And I was just like, who is touching me? That's all I thought. I was annoyed, right? Who is touching me? And I look to my right side, and there's my one friend who plans fell through, I guess. And I look to my other side, and there's my other friend who, I guess, again, plans fell through. And I look behind me, and there is a third friend of mine. And I was so, like, what I asked God for, he was showing up. And my friends didn't even realize at this point, I think, how hard I was really questioning my faith. And so I even went then to the front, because I just couldn't handle how much of God's love I was feeling in that moment, just from these people surrounding me and praying for me, not even knowing what was going on. So I went to the front. And I just kneeled down. Again, I was praying because I couldn't handle feeling the presence of God, because it can feel so overwhelming. And I feel a hand on my back again. And I was like, who is following me? Did they not get it? And I look back, and there is that roommate of mine, who she said, I don't know what's going on. How can I pray for you? Again, so frustrating, because she knew what to do. But she was being used by God there. And God calls us through other people. God uses other people. And even more, he uses us in these storms, because in this storm of feeling like nothing made sense. And so I continued to wrestle, kind of like, I don't fit in, but obviously God still wants me here for some reason. And so going into Easter, my mom always did this thing that she said, invite as many of your friends as you can, because I had friends from like Ontario, BC, people from all over. I had a friend from England. Literally, people from all over the world sometimes come to the school, all over the country. And so for Easter, we went home. I stayed up way too late on the Saturday. So then on the Sunday, I was pretty tired. I drove half the way kind of back home. Back to school, I guess, from home. And then I was like, I am way too tired. So my friend said, it's totally fine. I'll just drive the other half. It's a straight road. If you go from, it's very close to Moose Jaw where I went to school. So from Brandon to Moose Jaw, it's a pretty easy drive. So I thought there should be no issue. So I went and I just fell asleep in the middle seat because I had a good old mom van that I was driving. My one friend was in the front, my other friend was driving, and I was in the middle just sleeping. And I wake up and we're curving to the right, curving to the left, curving to the right. Boom. Right in that middle kind of section of the highway, we crash. And we end up on our side in some water because it was like snow that had melted. And it had been silent. Even during this, none of us are screaming. We're just silent. And I unclip and I say, it's okay. It's okay. We're okay. And suddenly someone rips the back of the van open. And they're like, are you guys okay? And they help us all out. And we're just standing there. And looking back, I was never the person that, I don't remember putting on my seatbelt. Because I would have slept. And that sounds silly, but most people are like, I wouldn't either. It's just a reaction. That was never my reaction when I was younger. And this we were pretty much unscathed from this car crash. Worst thing I got was a pinched nerve in my back. We were actually one car length, maybe one or two car lengths away from a sign that we could have hit, and it could have been way worse. But we went back unscathed. A friend actually came, picked us up, and the van got written off and everything. And again, this set me on a loop where I started to question everything. I call this like my existential crisis, where I wondered the big questions. What is the meaning of the life? What is the point? Because I came home and I had another friend who had two friends that were only a couple years older than me who died in car crashes that summer. So I started to question, why? What's so special about me, God? Why do you have these plans? What is going on? God calls us in the storms of life, in the storms of emotions, of finances, of relationships, of life in general. In Isaiah, it says, when you pass through the waters, I'll be with you. When you pass through the rivers, they will not sweep over you. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned. The flames will not set you ablaze. God allows us to go through storms. He allowed me to go through these storms. The questions of why me? Why am I still okay? Maybe that's a weird question to ask, but we all have those big questions. Why do some people get healed and some don't? I don't know the answers. But what I do know is before God formed me, he had a plan. That I try and plan these steps, but God's plan prevails. I don't have this one moment in my story where God showed up. My life is a constant example of God consistently showing up, of God consistently loving me. When I realize it and when I don't. Through people, through big decisions I have to make, and through the storms. God never brought this one moment of clarity where everything got figured out. But he was so consistent in my life. He was there in every storm for me, and he's there in every storm for you, whether you realize it or not. My testimony is just, it's a journey with God. It's a journey not of anything I've done, but a journey of who God is. That in every time I have a bump in the road, in every time where I question him, he never abandons. He says, I love you. It's okay. Just come back. So I'm not sure where you're at today. Maybe you're thinking, do you know what? This call on my life, God's calling me to do something big and it's scary. I encourage you, do scary things because God already has that plan before he formed you. Maybe you're thinking, I can't hear God's voice, but I have these other people, encouraging me and telling me. God puts people in your life to speak to you. Again, we might think we have all the little plans set out, but he has the big plan stepping forward. Or maybe you're thinking, I'm in a storm and God has abandoned me. He hasn't. He's in it with you. He's walking through it with you. I encourage you to just cry out to him. Sit with him and trust him. Let me pray again for you today. Dear Lord, we thank you that you have called us to great things. That not everything is easy in life, but you are God that changes our lives, that transforms our lives. God, I pray that we can continue to trust in you, to lean on you for your good and perfect will. We thank you that you love us so much, that you already have plans for us before we realize them, and that you call us to do amazing things. God, we pray you continue to change our lives. We love you, Lord. Amen.
Thank you again for choosing to spend part of your day with us. We would love to know what part of the service stood out to you, or maybe you have some questions about what Pastor Nikki was talking about. Just let us know in the comments. And if you haven't already, would you hit that like button and consider subscribing to our channel? That way you'll get a notification next time we drop a video. And if you're new here, please don't forget to click the link in the description to connect with us. We would really love to get to know you and just connect with you during the week. The summer kickoff parking lot party last week was amazing. Thank you to all the volunteers, the Clubbing Fraggles, Manhattan Beach Retreat Center, One at a Time Rescue, Star FM, for all of your help to put together this amazing party. We had around 500 people or so show up, hot dogs were eaten, faces were painted, bounce houses were bounced in, and so much more. It was so much fun. Make sure to head over to our Facebook and Instagram and you can check out all the photos of that event. Do you know a youth in grades 5 to 12, or maybe you're in grade 5 to 12? Make sure to check out all the amazing events happening here over summer. There are trips to water parks, different camps to go to, afternoon and evening events. Just click on the Life tab at ctbrandon.com and it has all the details there. More details on these and other events happening here at CT, you can find them all on the Events tab on our website. Here at CT, we believe giving is expression of worship. If you're new here, please don't feel compelled to give. This one is on us. For those who did come prepared to give, you can find all the different ways on ctbrandon.com. Just click on the Give tab. Giving is not about God needing our money. It's really about us. It invites us into this act of worship to reorientate our priorities, placing God and the needs of others before our own personal wants. When we give, it's our act of love and adoration and worship of God. And I can tell you firsthand that it has helped my faith journey as I dedicate part of my income to God. And maybe you can't do the whole 10%, the tithe thing. That's okay. I would highly recommend trying to start somewhere. And maybe you have more questions about this. Let us know in the comments or reach out to us by email, info@ctbranding.com, and we would love to answer any questions. So once again, those different ways that you can give are at ctbranding.com and click on the Give tab. Thank you so much for your continued generosity and your tithes and your offerings. It helps us put on those amazing parking lot parties or the other different youth events that we have over summer and so much more. So thank you again. Hey, if you're new here, don't forget to click that new tab, and thank you so much for joining us online today, and make sure to stay connected with us throughout the week on Facebook or Instagram. Those links are below. Thank you so much. May the Lord show you his favor and give you his peace this week. Thank you for joining us online, and take care. God bless.